Okay. All right. So, how you been? Besides still sick.
I've been pretty good. I've spent some time realizing that I was in a compared thinking about our first week, not so much of as what we talked about, but how I'm not so weepy these days
Mm-hmm.
as I was um with our first session, the first week, even the
Yeah.
first 2 weeks, and um and it feels like a whole other person. Just like the first 2 weeks, I was very emotional and thinking about it all the time.
Yeah. Well, it's probably the first time you've actually gone back and redigested your childhood, right? You kind of probably repressed it quite a bit with anger, blame, resentment, and however you were coping. And, when you bring it up to light and then someone brings it up and looks at it from a different angle, it can be very like, you know, shocking and at the same time necessary and revealing, like very revealing. And how can you not think about it when it's revealed to you in a different way? Something like childhood molestation for years can be revealed to you in a totally different context, and it's so releasing, right? Because so there's benefit to continuing to look at it, and that might have been shocking for you because previously there was no benefit to looking at it. It just brought up these horrible feelings and fear and again resent and anger and repression, and then you repress it, try to distract yourself with all this other shit, right? So it makes sense
Yeah,
why in the beginning it was sad. You had to really look at how things were being held in your mind and release it so that you could move on with your life. So that releasing can often feel sad, like the end of war, the end of a sad story. That was a sad story you had to let go.
mhm.
You know.
Yeah, that's how I spent. On some nights, the first 2 weeks, just any little thing that when I thought about it, I would cry. At work, on the way to work,
Oh, that had
at
to felt
home.
good. And then to
So,
feel that you
but
have
I
the
didn't realize.
opportunity, well, the opportunity that you have in addressing it and releasing it is to really have the humility to start over. So there's no point to continue the persona you created to cope, right?
Right. Yeah, I feel like a part of that person is gone, like done
Mhm.
with.
It's got to feel good. So good.
And not even subconsciously, but just thinking about it now as we talk about it is just over, like dead.
Oh,
Just no more.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's how I felt as I addressed my issues, as I went into them, I recognized for me that I didn't need to kill the body. I didn't need to commit suicide to the body. It was really a committing suicide to the false self, the self everybody else wanted me to be, the self that I was trying to be to feel better about myself, you know. And then when
Mhm.
you surrender that and don't you agree that part of you that you believe, well, it's not even the real you, the old you that you used and needed and protected you in a way, it was kind of poisonous. It was a poisonous personality, but it shielded you in a way from reality. So you could say it served a purpose. It served a purpose to be disassociated to, what happened to you in your childhood. But it came at a really high cost, especially as an adult. It just was really harmful. So it was this kind of love hate kind of persona that you had subconsciously and then consciously had to surrender, and to let go and to let die. It can be very sad because it meant something to you. And at the same time, good riddance. That was a burden.
That is spot on. Mhm.
I should write a book about it.
Yes, because I have a lot of relationships. I feel that they're always love-hate. It's like, in my mind, they're always hot or cold. In reality, they're always warm and loving.
Mm-hmm.
But in my mind, they have been. I don't think they will be the same. But
Mm-hmm.
it was love or hate in my mind, and it was so frustrating because I hated it. I hated that my relationships were that way.
Yeah, and that's like all or nothing, this or that.
Yeah.
And oftentimes the person that you're relating to is the same person all the time, but how you feel changes what you need from the person. And so, and we do that with all of our relationships, like with our spouse, with our siblings, when we're in that state of mind. I would never do that again. But I can tell when I'm being treated that way from like my sister. I have siblings, or, it's like she's projecting her shit onto me.
Mm-hmm.
And I love her, so, and I understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So a lot of people, you might realize that there were a lot of people in your life that really cared for you unconditionally and gave you a lot of grace. They gave you the space when you needed it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, oh my gosh, it's so relieving too. And it gives you this, last time we talked, you had kind of told the truth to the doctor. It was very, very releasing for you. At least it felt probably scary and vulnerable the moment you do it, because they can respond how they want to. I mean, that's the hardest part about telling the truth, is you are opening yourself to the vulnerability of how others are going to respond, and you have to be open to any response that they're going to have. And so, but by telling the truth, you're really releasing yourself, and you're deepening your sense of worth, I think, in that you're willing to be vulnerable. And so the willingness to be vulnerable, to tell the truth, that is in essence what you are given when you are in reality. That's what we talked about in our last session, was the reality. In order to be in reality and to stay in reality, it has to have lenience. It has to have grace around your truth and your reality of where you're at in your process of awareness, and how reality manifests itself in physicalities, materialism, jobs, relationships. And so it's like moving targets all over the place, and the only real sense of safety comes from having grace with telling the truth around, maybe I'm not the best person for this job. Maybe I'm not the right person for this marriage. Maybe they're no longer the right person for me, in all these relationships. And that can feel very, very vulnerable, because you might go into pain. Am I confusing you at all? So, for example.
No, that makes sense, because the person that you were in these relationships may not be the same person. You may not have the same relationship.
Yeah, once you become authentic.
Who you are now.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're now authentic. Now, right? Yeah, you're now authentic, and that old person that you believe died for you, that person within you that died, the ego person that that ego person may have had relationships with other people only based on conditional feedback and reward systems.
Yes.
So those relationships, what you'll find, and that relationship may not have been with a person. It could have been with a religion, with a job, with a friendships, with different roles that you've. Well, of course, I love that you just pointed that out. With food, with dieting, with body image, because food is in relation to body image. So how you related to food was directly impacted by your desire to be thinner, right? And that desire to be thinner had everything to do with managing and coping with the trauma that you had, right? And how you resented your mother. So it's not black and white. But as you release your coping mechanism and persona that you created, as you release that, all of a sudden you're left to question, is it truthful of me? Is it truthful of me to be ashamed of my body? If I've released myself from all these things, should I be ashamed of my body? You're open then to question these end result judgments and criticisms that you've carried for years, right? So for me, it was, should I be ashamed of the fact that I had sex with these boys and these men, wanting and believing that they might like me? So naive, right? So naive.
Yeah.
But I believed that as a naive girl, and being in these positions and, thinking that they might like me. I don't know how to say no. Should I really be ashamed of the reality or truth in what happened? I had carried dark amounts of shame, defining shame because of it. And once I kind of addressed the issue and released it, I was left to really question if I truly believe that from my heart versus from the mind, right? The mind is convincing you you're a piece of shit, right? You did the wrong thing, but it's only because of the brainwashing or the dogma that you believed in. So it's not necessarily my heart that I'm following. I'm following a belief system that told me if you have sex before marriage, you are seen as worthless to God. Does that make sense? So once I kind of released all of these things, I had to question what my beliefs were from the heart. And my answer was not the same as the dogma. And if my answer at the heart wasn't the same as the dogma that came from religion, then the religion that I was supposed to follow dogmatically was now questionable. So for me, I had to unravel layers and layers of ego personas and dogma. So I came out of it, and not only did I release the whole thin supremacy, but I had to be released from a variety of different brainwashing and programs that I had just naively and actually very, very understandably held on to, because I was raised to believe these things. And for the first time in my life at age 20, I was actually questioning if I truly believed these things from my heart, if I were no longer trying to get people's approval, my parents to love me. If I didn't truly need my parents' love and approval, would I still hold on to these beliefs from the intrinsic part of my heart and soul, right? And so that question you have to ask with food, do you truly want a relationship with food that is emotionally needy? Do you really want to binge? Do you truly want to rely on food when you feel scared, afraid, excited, happy?
Absolutely not.
Right, there's so much drama involved with it, right? Physically, you feel like shit. Physically, it's harmful. So just even that alone, you feel physically, it hurts. Physically, it's painful, Let alone. Go ahead.
I was thinking about it last night when I was on the couch, and I thought, I really haven't had any urges for a serious binge in like 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there on the couch, and I thought, if I had an urge to binge right now, like I can already taste the food. I wouldn't need. I was like I can already taste what I would want, and I know what it looks like. I know what it tastes like. So would I really need to eat it? Like I already know what it tastes like.
Yeah, and you're going to be able to taste it. This is what I love about this process. Because you're not going to diet anymore, you can taste what that is over and over and over and over again for the rest of your life. So do you really need it right now? Right now? Do you really need it this second? Right? I think that's also the other part is you're kind of reorienting yourself with food. And that's why these thoughts are coming up. Do I really need to taste it right now? First of all, you probably had an awareness to get that thought that you weren't hungry. Or were you? And you were just...
No.
Okay.
No, because what I've been doing, like the past 2 weeks, I've been trying to just I haven't even been eating a lot of formal meals. I've been just trying to eat a little bit of something when I've been hungry.
Have you
Not
noticed?
even thinking about like amounts, just
Yeah.
because right now I know we need to get into like the food part.
Not really.
But,
I just want you to know that we really don't. That's
okay.
Isn't that surprising? Because can you tell that it's naturally already happening on its own? There's no effort. It should feel pretty effortless.
It has been, but then I've been thinking, okay, just do this until you talk about it, because I've just been like, I'm just gonna kind of eat when it comes up,
Yeah.
and then I'm not gonna do anything super formal. And then, and so last night I had just eaten something small, like, I said pita chips and hummus for dinner. I mean, it was just like real small, like nothing. I ate some, and then I was fine. I didn't stuff myself. And then, like an hour later, I was thinking, that I hadn't had a binge, because for me, binging is chip and dip mostly.
Yeah.
And the pitas and I remember thinking, wow, the last time I ate pitas and hummus, I wasn't binging, but I did eat the entire container of hummus, and realizing I was just trying to stuff something
without addressing it.
Right, even though at the time I was just eating because I was hungry, but I don't need to eat the entire container.
Yeah, that's a sign you just weren't paying attention. You were paying attention to something else. Even though you think eating the hummus is distracting me, you're not actually paying attention to the hummus. You're paying attention to what's still distracting you, thinking that eating hummus is going to get rid of it, and it never really does. And you end up feeling like shit. Yeah.
Correct. And then yesterday I ate half of it, and then I felt I was fine. I wasn't full. I wasn't starving. I felt satisfied, and then about an hour later, I was thinking the whole binge thing. Like, and maybe my mind wanted a mini. Like, maybe that's why I was thinking about it. But I thought, I could taste it right now. Like, I already know what it tastes like. There's no need to go out and buy it and go sit by yourself and do it. Like, I can. That's the first time I ever tasted it without doing it. Like,
you can it's like a recall. It's like recalling it. So
there's no need.
Yeah. So from there, what I would suggest you do next time this happens is you go into what does it serve? What is this serving? What do I benefit if I were to go eat that? What does it benefit? What is it serving? Is it serving the body, or is it serving something self-centered, or some self-centered need that I'm willing to hurt the body? It's like the body can always be abused if I need it. Right? So recognize. So what you're doing is you're recognizing, I don't need it, I'm not hungry. You're recognizing you can recall, I know what it tastes like. It's not that I don't know and I need to eat it now. That's the impulsivity you're describing. Okay. There was an impulse.
That's what I'm used to feeding into.
Like, just impulsively go.
I'm so used to go, I feel this impulse. Now I need to plan how I'm going to feed this. When will I get the next opportunity?
Let's talk about that.
Am I going to be alone?
Let's talk about the impulse. The impulse isn't the food. Right? You could say food is your focus moving forward. It's almost like, it's kind of like an escape route. The impulse is coming from a feeling you don't want. You don't want it to be there. You don't want it to exist. It is a feeling probably of fear, panic. So a lot of people don't necessarily, you're trying to escape something. There's that, or there's there's always an escape, right? So if you look at the impulse, clearly for you, the food has always worked to remove the feeling. Always. Right? Can you see why your conscious mind would instantly go to, I just need to feed myself, and I deserve it, and I want it, and I'm going to get it, and I earned it. You can justify and rationalize it, which is what you probably do because you feel bad about your weight. So to eat impulsively when you're physically, it's going to cause more physical harm. requires all these rationalizations and justifications, right? So that you don't have to have any guilt or shame about it as you do it. Of course.
Yeah, all the way up until the very minute that it's happening.
Yeah, and then all the shame comes in because you're like, why? Makes sense? Right. So, but that's like an after effect. We don't even need to go into that. What you and I really need to go into and address, and I think we've addressed the underlying cause already, but to go back and look at it, you could say, well, the moment I want food, and it has nothing to do with hunger, it has to do with this feeling. There's a feeling, and I would suspect it is a feeling of death.
Do you see the moment I left food?
The moment you want food, the moment food becomes like, yeah, the moment you're like, I need it. It becomes an option.
I did say that one word before the word food. So, okay.
You could say, well, there's a feeling I have in that moment of panic. There's a panic. Am I wrong?
No. No. That's correct. I just didn't hear what word it was, so I was trying to fill in the blank.
Well, I said death, and then I just changed it. It's like panic. There's a panic, right? Ah, do something. Do something. Right.
And it just comes quickly. It's not something that builds up.
No, it is do something. Panic. Yeah. And you don't necessarily do something right away, but the solution is created right away. I'm getting my food. And that solution feels good. Because it's doing what it needs to do, which is getting rid of that panic. Do something, right?
Oh, yeah. No, it's just a great feeling.
Well, because it's like I got rid of that feeling. It serves a purpose. I'm getting temporary freedom.
Oh, my dog. Exactly. I'm solving the problem.
Yeah, but you're not even knowing. So here's where we go from here. Is that panic feeling? If you had to describe it, what is below the panic? Obviously, panic is do something now. What's below that? What does it feel like? If you had to describe what it is that's creating the panic, how would you describe that feeling? I can tell you how I describe it, but I want to see if you have a description.
Maybe anxiety?
Yes.
Or euphoria, but it's a happy anxiety because I'm going to go.
Okay, that's afterwards. That's after. Okay. Once you decide I'm going to binge, it's a happy anxiety around the fact that I have a certain period of time to get what I want, and I don't have to feel bad about it. That's where the euphoria comes in, is the release from feeling bad about it. So I get to do this, and I don't have, and it's like hiding but getting freedom. It's a release from feeling bad about food. Okay, that's where that's afterwards. I'm going deeper. I'm going the opposite direction. I'm going the direction you don't want to go, right? Okay. This feeling comes up of panic, and then you go the direction of freedom, release. Right? What's going to get rid of that panic? And it feels good. And it should feel good. That's how the brain works. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't you agree? If someone had that type of panic, that they should and would find something of equal energy to remove it. Yeah. Okay. So what I want you to do is go below the panic. Where does this panic come from? So the panic arises. I want to ask why. Okay, I have my way of describing why, what it is that I felt, but I want to see if you have something underneath there. If you don't, I'm okay with that. I can help guide you through what it is and just what it feels like. If you had to describe what is underneath the panic is to do something. Why? What are you trying to remove? What are you getting rid of? What are you hiding? What are you pushing down? What are you trying to avoid? Don't you agree that panic comes from avoidance? There's an avoidance underneath that panic. What is it that you're avoiding?
Like loneliness?
Okay, what does that sure, that can be it. I don't have the answer for you.
I know.
So,
I'm trying to search for it because I've never thought about it.
well, I know. That's why I'm going here.
Okay.
I remember when I just said I'm taking you the direction you've never wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
We're going that direction. Because to do this, we're kind of calling on it. We're asking it to come, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's call on it. What is it that your mind is saying is avoid, abort, remove, suppress, bad, you don't want, get rid of, get rid of, get rid of? What is it? I know for me, it was a feeling of murder. I was going to get murdered. If I had to describe what the feeling was, it was, this will kill you. You're going to die. And it's not going to be good. So it has a feeling, if you had to describe it, my way of description would be, it feels like I'm going to get murdered, like a nightmare where something's chasing you and it's going to be horrible and it's ugly and it's the scariest thing you've ever had chase you, and you are trying to run. Abort. Panic. There's panic, right?
Mm-hmm.
That panic is pretty intense. The feeling that is you are trying to escape from must be just as intense.
Right. And you're running away from it.
Mm-hmm.
To food, to the binge.
Yeah, to whatever it is. To some people, the way they get rid of it is to be drunk. Same exact feeling underneath there. They feel like they're going to die. It feels like I'm going to get murdered. So the only way to get rid of it is to be drunk. The only way for me to get rid of it is to go exercise for 2 hours. To try to be thin. And what as we go down, we're going to go, well, there is a loneliness. Well, what's the loneliness attached to? There's attachments to all of it. There's a story behind it. To where you could line it all together and go, well, no wonder I'm binging. That makes total sense. It's actually very logical. Or someone who's using alcohol will go, well, no wonder I'm trying to get drunk. No, duh. Anybody else with that same feeling, if that's what got rid of it, would do the same thing. I don't care how smart, rich, happy you are. You're going to do the same thing. For me, it was a feeling of death. I will die. And it's not just I'm dying, it's getting murdered. Something from outside of me is coming at me and will kill me. I'm being killed. So it was, that was the description for me, is the intensity of it. So then from there I went, well, what is trying to kill me? What is it I've attached to killing me? Well, body fat. Being fat is going to kill me. So then you see how it was like, oh, no wonder I'm trying to be thin. No wonder. And for you, it might be being starved is going to kill me. I'm going to starve. So, well, no wonder you're going to food. That's very common. That is like, it's so clear as day. It's like right in front of your nose. You never saw it before. I'm going to be starved.
Yeah.
I'm going to be deprived, withheld. There's a feeling.
I never realized that before.
Well, I'm bringing it up. What's connecting for you? Which part?
Well, I'm going to be starved. That feels very powerful. But I'm not, I think, like, loneliness and abandonment, like, I don't really, I guess that's what I need to focus on, is what was below the panic. I know that it was lonely, and
you probably attached it to being fat, which then is attached to I have to diet, which then creates the death by starvation. And then you go into eating. And it feels good because you're not going to die of starve. You know, I'm being served. I'm getting my fair share. I do get to eat. But then it creates a loop around to your weight. When this is clear to you, it's going to be super obvious. Like, ding da dong da ding da dong. No duh. Right?
Yeah.
Like my sense of panic was attached to I will die. There's a sense of death, being murdered, getting killed. Okay, it's that intense. You could describe that as the intensity behind it. The intensity of the panic is death, attached for me to body fat, which is actually attached to the same loneliness, abandonment. So I had the same sense of abandonment, rejection, disapproval associated to not being thin. Right? So if I'm not thin, I will die. And the association was because I will be, it feels like embarrassment, failure, loss, rejection, abandonment, disapproval, and isolation.
Mm-hmm.
People I love will not love me. So there's all of this underneath it all. So when you see all that, you can go, well, no wonder I'm binging. No wonder, because I have to diet. I have to deprive. And feeling deprived, I want you to go into the sense of deprivation. What does that feel like? You know this so well. You are an expert at this emotion. You have,
right, and I have to say that the binging most likely occurs like during the diet process.
Well, yeah.
Like doing so well at the diet, and then all of a sudden, boom, a bomb goes off.
Yeah, because you have to be perfect. Yeah, that's the same. That's how my binges were. That's how most people's binges are. Except for some people that binge eat. They don't even get to the diet. Because they are running from being deprived. They are running away from that sense of scarcity. It feels like they're going to starve to death. There is a feeling of death and dying, and I have to get the food in. So there's two sides to what's happening. So those clients that I'm describing that never really get to dieting, they're running away from the nightmare of starvation to death. Morbidly obese. 400, 350 pounds. They get massive size in terms of how their binge eating goes. So it sounds like you actually do diet. You're actually getting to the dieting aspect of it.
Oh, yeah, I'm a pro at that.
Yeah, okay. So we just have to get you to be able to vocalize, if we can help you kind of open the truth of why your binging is so understandable. The binging to me is so like, oh yeah, of course you're binging. I did too. And then I would have massive panic attack again. The panic would come back again. I would have panic both directions. Panic, I need to eat. I need to eat. I want the freedom to eat. Fuck it. I'm excited to binge. And then immediate sense of insane death and murder from gaining weight because it was exposing. People will find out I'm a fraud. And then I have to puke it up or exercise it up. So there was multiple moments of panic attacks. And you could probably relate.
Yeah, because post-binge comes the letdown.
Oh, yeah.
First it's the euphoria,
the pressure.
And then the letdown, and the realize,
I have to fix
you're
this.
not going to lose weight by doing this.
No, and you have to diet. You wouldn't have binged either if you didn't say, I will diet when it's over. You don't get permission to binge. Nobody binges without the permission from dieting. You have to get permission first from your diet mentality.
Oh yes, because this is my last one.
Yep, and I will fix it. So you're discussing with the diet mentality. That's where the negotiations are from. I deserve it. I earned it. I'm having a hard time. I deserve this. I will fix it. And boom, there's the diet. It's the moment you say, I will sign a contract saying that I will fix this when it's over, but that's where the euphoria occurs. Because that's like saying, I have permission to do this. Ooh, it feels so good. That's where you get excited. This right here, we are describing what binging feels like right here. This is where, like, when you go to see a clinician who's an expert at eating disorders, they won't have a clue about any of this. They're going to go, the food makes you feel euphoric. It's like an addiction to food. No. That is so naive, isn't it? When you open this up and you start to understand, oh, I am euphoric over the temporary freedom from shame and guilt about the food I'm about to eat. I get freedom to eat for a period of time. It could be this meal. It could be this moment. It could be this day. It could be this week. You have got a hall pass because I'm a victim. There's always a victim story underneath it. Right? That's why we talk about the narcissism and why I talk about the victim mentality, because you've used it to get your food over and over and over again. And so being a victim and having your sob story has always benefited you, right? Because you can blame it on your mother. My mother did this to me. Well, not really. Because at this point, you're doing it to yourself. You've done it far worse to yourself than your mother ever did, right?
Oh, yeah.
I know. But it feels good to hold on to your resent for her because you can use that to get a binge. But you're negotiating with the idea of I need to be thin to be connected and to feel good about myself, which you've internally chosen as well, right? The desire to lose weight because you're afraid to be alone. Because I mean that's that loneliness and abandonment you're trying to remove through dieting and being thinner, right? The dieting is about the thinnerness. So the moment you feel, there's like multiple things going on. This is why I don't think it's a disorder. I think it's a syndrome. It's a combination of this desire to eat food as an animal, having to negotiate within the diet industry, which is like food dogma, dieting dogma is what it is. And then there is this fear of body fat, which is connected to disconnection with your tribe, and the shame around it that promotes the dieting. I mean, it's just this like, I talk about this competition between survival needs. The need for food is competing against your need to feel loved through thinness. The thin supremacy is holding your lovability hostage. And in order for you to get lovability, you have to starve yourself. So the animal part of you is striving to just want to eat food. You're trying to repress it. And eventually you feel like, fuck it, I deserve to eat. I need this food. Boom, there's your binge. Then there comes back the shame. I have to fix this. I have to fix this. So that creates even more impulsivity to keep on eating because you're like, at some point, I got to go back into that restriction and I got to do it perfectly. So I might as well get everything I can get in right now. And as you're doing that, you're not understanding it. You're just holding yourself to this idea. I'm supposed to be perfect and I don't know why I'm not. So there's all this shame that comes in. That's where people binge or purge. Bulimics purge at that point because that's a quick and easy way to feel like it's like tricking yourself into thinking there's no binging happening and occurring. Yes, there was.
Is that their version of dieting?
Yeah. You're connecting to it. People don't think this, but chronic dieters are bulimic. They're just, I call it a larger loop. Purgers are in short loops. It's like super intense, super insane. Like 3 or 5 times a day, you'll go through massive binges and purges and binges and purges. When you're dieting, you don't do it 5 times a day because you got to diet that shit off. So there's a little bit of a boundary around the binging. When people are like postponing their purge for like next month, their binges aren't as large. So the sooner the purge or the restriction, the smaller the binge. And if the purge is exercise, the binge is smaller because it has to be You have to be able to create equilibrium with how much food you've eaten and how much energy you're burning. And so, exercise bulimics are constantly working in terms of calories and expenditure because it's got to create a 0 point where I'm not going to gain weight. And so a lot of people, I mean, I don't mean to laugh, but I'm speaking from my illness, right? It's fucking funny. It's so ridiculous. It's all irrational. It's not even, it's irrational.
Right.
The diet industry is supporting it. They make money
because
off of this.
Because they know these cycles.
Well, they don't really know anything. They're just run by people with this syndrome, making money off of, I'm really good at staying thin with this process. So I'm going to teach this to you. So we have how many people running around with exercise bulimia? Not realizing that they were given the system from an exercise bulimic. And promoting it as if it is so healthy.
That's interesting. I never saw it that way before.
Well, you've always thought it was trustworthy, that the diet industry, again, think of it in terms of dogma. Dogma is a set of truths or a truth given to you by an authority that is not to be questioned. So you just blindly give that industry all this credibility as if they know, and you are a pile of shit that doesn't know. And you are sucky because you can't do what they've told you to do. Never questioning that what they're telling you to do is inhumane and abusive. You're supposed to intermittently fast all the time. Would you do that to your kids? Would you intermittent fasters do that to your children?
Never.
I know.
Never.
No, because all of a sudden you have clarity when it comes to your children. That's wrong. My children could get taken from me if I do that to them. Yeah. Wrong.
When you just said you are sucky, I think that's what's under some of my panic too, when we talk about the panic mood.
Yeah. Well, that's because if you fail, there's embarrassment. You remember when last session you were talking about how when you go to the doctor and they're like, you have high blood pressure, you're like, I will fix it. I can handle this. I'm a survivor. You just wait. You had a persona around that. And you had to look at that and go, that was a crock of shit. I would hold myself to these standards. I would hold myself to it, but I wouldn't have a clue how to do it. But I had to hold myself to it because I had to. I left home at 17. It was like a personality that has helped me survive. But it's also created all these expectations that are way out of reality. Like, I got to be the best just because I arbitrarily say I'm going to be the best. Right? And so the outcome of that is continuous sense of inadequacy and shame. So what that does in recovery is it forces you to look at, do you really need to be the best? And if you're not the best, are you going to fail? The narcissist in your coping mechanism is going to say, yeah, you're going to fail. You need the perfectionist. The perfectionist is what's going to keep you alive. Well, really? Because that perfectionism is actually the source of all of your shame. All of it. 100%. You don't feel shame without some perfectionistic ideal that you are holding yourself to. You wouldn't feel shame to a perfectionistic ideal if you didn't hold yourself to it. Because there's all sorts of that around and you don't hold yourself to it, so you don't feel bad about yourself. Right? Like, I don't have to have the nicest house. I don't have to wear the best clothes. I don't need to wear all the makeup. I don't have to do all the contouring. Like, there's all sorts of perfectionistic systems out there that you give tons of grace to and it doesn't bother you. But in certain areas, you believe it and you feel bad. So all of your shame and feelings of inadequacy come from some dogmatic ideal that you are arbitrarily holding yourself to without any understanding of how to do it. Like, for me, it was, I'm going to wait till I'm married to have sex. So I'm going to hold myself to this standard, not realizing what it takes if I'm not isolated. Because I made the commitment to it in isolation as a child without any type of reality around me. Make sense? Does it? I mean, am I just speaking here in tongues?
No, it makes complete sense. Okay. It really does.
So look at the shame, the source of your shame, and recognize that your shame is coming from these standards that you are holding yourself to, that other people might have held you to as well. You know, I was holding myself to these religious standards, which required I stay isolated from reality for me to manage them and to maintain them. So I'd have to go back in isolation to go back into that perfectionism. I'd have to leave college and live at home in a small town to maintain the standard so that God will love me. Right? So you have the same exact dogma. It might not be in religion. It could be in other things like success. You know, getting everything done that you need to get done. And again, at a 17-year-old leaving home, especially with childhood trauma, you can see why you took on that persona naively. Just arbitrarily holding yourself to these successful standards, but not really having the foundation of why and understanding even why you were pursuing them. You pursued the superiority probably to prove that you're not a shitty mom like your mom. You know, you're not as shitty as your mom, you know, and so it comes, a lot of them stem from your own ignorant judgment of your own parents, right?
Right.
And so if you don't hold that ignorance to your parents and you don't hold that criticism anymore and you are so forgiving, you're now forgiving and giving her relativity, what happens to your need to pursue these standards of perfectionism? You know?
There.
Right? Isn't that the best? So you have to look then, would you still feel ashamed if you didn't hold yourself? Should anybody have to hold themselves to those standards? Anybody. Whatever those standards are. You know, whether it's religious dogma, political dogma, social dogma, money dogma, body image dogma, right? All the dogmas out there. I just listed quite a few, right? That are obvious. Feminist dogma. Misogynistic dogma. I mean, all of it, right? Should anybody have to hold themselves to that degree just to be loved? Just to seem acceptable? Not even like over the top amazing. It's neutral acceptance. Just to be acceptable. Should you have to hold yourself to that standard of crazy drain?
Absolutely not.
Right? It's like, you're holding yourself to a standard that's like Olympic status for neutrality. You don't get a medal. You just get neutral.
That's true.
I know, right? So question that. Should I have to reach these standards just for neutrality? Just for like a moment of I can breathe. For acceptance. For acceptance. Can't you just be human? I mean, can't you just be real? And what's the truth? What is the truth? And is that good enough? Can we undistort this? Because you could say you're cognitively distorted around what's acceptable. You've distorted what's acceptable into extreme radicalism, perfectionistic expectations. What is acceptable has been distorted into it has to be the best, perfectionistic, idealistic, the ultimate, right? Above normal. For you, because you could say you don't hold other people to that standard, do you?
No, I would tell
everybody.
I would understand.
Yeah, everybody else gets grace.
Failed at it, I would understand and tell them it was okay.
Right, except for
you.
you.
I would never tell myself that, right?
Because you have to meet higher standards than them. You hear the narcissism in it? But I am I'm a little bit higher up. And you don't realize when you're doing that that's what you're doing. You wouldn't think, oh, I'm holding myself to superior human standards because I'm a superior human. They, on the other hand, they can be real and normal because they're real and normal people. But I have higher standards. Right?
Interesting.
You would never think that's narcissistic, would you?
No,
but that's
not at all.
what that is. I have superior standards. They don't have to meet those standards because they're not superior. They're normal and they get grace. They get to be normal. They get to have love with their inferiority. They don't have to meet these standards. It's a weird way to really perceive people, don't you think?
It is horrible.
I know. Well, good.
Connections that way.
Well, what you're doing is you're holding yourself. You're seeing yourself as a higher person. You're not necessarily seeing them as lower people. That's what some of my clients do. Those are pathological narcissists. Those are my more anorexic type clients. Anorexic clients listening to this are going, oh yeah, I do put people down. Right?
Mm-hmm.
There's always a spectrum of where people are at. I didn't put people down. I was putting myself up. I have to meet a higher standard of thinness because I'm special. I have that special gift of thinness. I would never have thought that was narcissism. Because I wasn't necessarily putting people down. I always gave everybody so much grace. They didn't have to be thin. They could love themselves as they were. But I am special. You hear it? So you might be doing that in just everything, arbitrarily, just randomly. I have to be thinner. I have to be more controlled. I have to have everything perfectly clean. I have to make money, and it has to be super organized, and I don't spend, and I do spend. There's probably some type of structure system.
Oh, totally not a spender. I can see it.
Okay, good. I love that you're laughing. You're like, oh shit. I have projected my superiority into certain areas. And in spending, you might be critical of other people who spend.
Well, yeah, look at the hole in my shirt. See, I don't spend my money on clothes.
But other people should take care of themselves.
Oh my God.
Other people should take care of themselves.
Yeah. I'm just laughing because it's so silly.
It is, I know. Okay, see, now you're getting it. That's why I'm like, it seems so cold to laugh at this. Like when I laugh at the eating disorder stuff, and I'm like, it is just so fucking silly. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that as someone who's recovered. I get it. It is silly. Mm-hmm. But to you, it was so serious before. So serious. Because I have to prove myself.
Badge of honor. Mm-hmm.
Because I'm superior. Because I'm not going to be like my mother. Mm-hmm. So now you just kind of unravel everything. Because it's like, it's not serious anymore. And you don't have to do all this anymore. Nobody should have to do it, including your mother.
Yeah.
You're to do the best you can with what you're aware of. And that's pretty much all you've been doing. And all your mother did. And all your father did. And your siblings are doing. And everybody around you, that's what they're doing. Some people don't know that they're narcissistic at all. They don't have a clue. Because it serves them. It's survival. It serves you. There's a purpose for it.
Mm-hmm.
It just comes at high cost, and most of it is shame. The high cost is shame, fear, anxiety, and it's all kind of you can see it's all kind of a lie. You're promoting a lie of what you're supposed to be. But reality is constantly existing, creating cognitive dissonance. Constantly creating, I'm not what I want to be. I'm not that. But I want this, but you're not. Right? But I am that. No, you're not. But this is what life's supposed to be like. No, it's not. So there's always the distance between what you think and want and reality occurring. And the larger the distance, the more cognitive dissonance you're going to experience. And oftentimes that dissonance, we try to create equilibrium through narcotic abuse, shopping, eating, dieting, thinnerness. We're trying to create some type of equilibrium around how shitty we feel in relation to these standards that are dogmatically ingrained in our brains from social programming. Because you didn't create the programs. You didn't create fiscal conservatism. Right?
No.
You didn't create thin supremacy. You just internalize them as truths that you want to pursue. And the idea is that there's a reward. And it can be rewarding. But at what cost? Where does the imbalance occur? Where you're living like a pauper. But I don't have any debt, but you're living like a pauper.
Right.
In the pride of your self.
So I had on my list of things to do this weekend. I'm feeling much better, and I'm actually feeling better today than I was yesterday. Is to go get some new clothes.
I love it.
Really?
And you know what's going to be challenging for you is the fact that you're not going to be thinner. So sometimes when people hold on to this, I got to be thinner, I'm going to be thinner, I'm going to be thinner, they basically neglect themselves and if you look at the neglect, if someone was treating you this way, the neglect.
Oh yeah, because part of the reason is also because I don't want to spend the money, even though I have it, but is I don't want to have to go buy the same size. I wanted to go buy a smaller size the next time I went shopping.
Yeah, it's crazy. And do you see how this happens? It's like imagine treating someone else this way. We're not going to buy you new clothes until you're smaller. Sorry.
Yeah, it's horrible.
It is. It's very unloving and cold, isn't it?
It is.
You are such a little bitch to yourself. You should be turned into the cops for neglect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's being praised in your mind. That's how distorted everything is.
Yeah.
I deserve to not wear clothes that are comfortable. I don't deserve it. I deserve to be held hostage. I deserve to starve myself. I deserve to be isolated. I deserve to be in a dark room. No one should know I exist. I deserve it. This is how people are brainwashed in cults. I deserve to. This is my punishment. And I deserve it. So there is a sense of I deserve in that keeps you from seeing the neglect and how inhumane this is. No human should live this way. No human, especially in this first world environment, right? Of course, relative to third world environments, you're rich. You're rich as hell, right? You have a toilet that works and clean water and you don't have to worry about. Of course. So there's a balance, don't you agree, around taking care of yourself?
Yeah.
In the environment that you are living in. So we're not telling you go waste all your money and buy thousands and thousands of dollars of clothes for fun. That's not what we're saying, are we?
No.
I want you to imagine that you have, let's just say, a 16-year-old daughter who has been held hostage and neglected. And you're going to go buy her some new clothes. You going to tell her she sucks because she's a size 18?
No, I never do that.
You're going to say, well, you should just hold off on buying these clothes until you're a size 14. You get my point?
Yeah.
You would say, let's get you some new jammies. Let's get you some new underwear. Make sure they're comfortable. You wouldn't say a word about her size. You wouldn't say a word.
Right.
Find something that you think is cute. No shit. Find something you think is cute. No expectations. Something's too tight, get the next size up. If they don't have your size, go to a different store that supports your size. Is that worthy of shame and embarrassment?
Not at all. Not anymore, I should say.
It should feel like ooey gooey love. You should feel like ooey gooey, like lovingness, sweetness. It shouldn't be an entitlement sense to it. There shouldn't feel like I deserve it. There shouldn't be anything like that other than this is how it should be. It's going to feel like love versus an entitlement.
Yeah.
Okay, that's your assignment. I'm excited.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do this weekend, and just try not to get all upset. I don't feel right now that I would get, but I don't think I've ever been shopping before and not thought, oh, this is the last time I have to buy this size, you know.
No, you're not to worry about it.
Last time, you know, I just want to shop because I need clothes.
Yeah, and get stuff that's got elastic. That's got elastic. That can go up and down. Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
Find some, you know, again, just comfortable. You want to feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm so excited for you.
Me too.
And give yourself a budget that is realistic, okay? You're not going to get everything in $100.
No, especially, you know, I have to shop at the bigger girls' clothes, so they're a little more, but they last forever. It's good quality, I don't mind. I mean, I need them.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. This is a moment where you get to go do this for yourself, and it is because it's actually necessary. You need it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're to get what you like. You're not to be like, I don't know. That's why I meant go with a budget. Like, go with something that's realistic.
Okay.
Take $1,000 goddamn dollars. If you have it.
Okay. Yeah, it'll probably be tomorrow.
Oh, I'm so excited for you. Okay.
Me too. Okay.
Stop this.